law says no lust. No lust and no adultery. You have to be worried about. Then the letter of the law, a topic that so many people, and we won't have time to really even expand on it right here, but it's a topic that has plagued the church for so many years, even up to date right now, and there's still so many opinions, so many various opinions, variations, so many different opinions about it. I believe in keeping things simple. I'm just a simple man, and I believe that God, that the gospel can be understood in simple terms. Sometimes I think we break things down so much that we break it down to where it's not understandable. Excuse me. So, the letter of the law says no divorce. The spirit of the law talks about commitment. If we had more people committed to their vows and to marriage, there would be less divorce. So the third illustration that he gives, divorce is contrasted to marriage. Look at verse 31. It has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say, there it is again. But I say to you, whosoever shall put away his wife, save him for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced commits adultery. Now, and that verse, it's understandable why it does raise a lot of questions. The Pharisees interpreted Moses' teaching on divorce from Deuteronomy 24:1. They interpreted that teaching on divorce to mean that a man can divorce his wife at virtually any whim. Their interpretation, the way they taught it, was if daddy came home and mama burned the biscuits, you could call for divorce. If she didn't have your meal ready right on time at a certain time every day, you could call for divorce. If she just got up one morning, her hair just didn't look right to suit you, you could call for divorce. That's how crazy, really, these teachings have been taken so far out of proportion. And the Pharisees, that's the way they interpreted the law of Moses on the teaching of divorce. Now, Jesus here, he counters that abuse. He restricts divorce to the grounds of sexual immorality. A term he uses here, save for the cause of fornication. Now, that term means any deviation from the clearly defined biblical standards for sexual activity. For example, homosexuality, adultery, fornication, and prostitution. Now, so I heard someone say this one time. They said, all fornication is not adultery, but all adultery is fornication, because fornication covers a vast multitude of different types of sexual sin. So all fornication is not adultery, but all adultery is fornication. Adultery, in other words, falls under that heading of fornication, along with some other fleshly sins. Look at verse 32. But I say to you, whosoever shall put away his wife, save him for the cause of fornication. Again, he says, I tell you, whoever dismisses and repudiates and divorces his wife, except on the grounds of unfaithfulness, sexual immorality, he says, that is one of the biblical grounds for divorce. That is one of the few biblical grounds for divorce. Now, is divorce the unpardonable sin? Certainly not. There is forgiveness after divorce. Aren't you glad? I think all of us, except for just one maybe, is glad for that in this building today. That there is forgiveness after divorce. Now, I had a lady tell me one time she went through both a death and a divorce. One husband died, the other one, they ended up divorced. She said divorce is by far worse than death. She said divorce is just by far worse than death. Death is final. Death, there is no kind of anything, any kind of reconciliation, nothing going to happen. Divorce, you still got to live on the same planet with that person, sometimes in the same vicinity. But it's not the unpardonable sin. It is not the unforgivable sin. And which many would even still probably believe that way even today. And many, even in our denomination years ago, if you were it didn't matter what the grounds was. It didn't matter what caused the divorce. If you were divorced for any reason, you were through in the ministry. In the Pentecostal Church, you were. And it's still that way in a lot of denominations. Now, the Pentecostal Church since then has come to an understanding there are some biblical grounds for divorce. You know, you can't make another party love you. You can't make another party do what's right if they don't want to do what's right. And so, and you can't make them stay with you. So there are, and this is one of the biblical grounds for that. So the Greek word for fornication comes, the word in the Greek is porneia. Any guess what word comes from that? We'll take a guess. Porneia. Pornography. That's what the Greek word is for fornication here. And people don't realize when they're involved in pornography, when they're engrossed in pornography and they're addicted to pornography, they don't realize that is just as much a sexual sin as anything else that's mentioned. That falls under the heading of fornication. That the Greek word porneia is where it comes from, pornography. And so it means adultery of married or single people and includes incest, idolatry, and adultery in honor of idol gods. Natural or spiritual harlotry is included in the term. Sodomy or male prostitution. So are we picking a homosexual when we say it's a sin to be homosexual? No. Homosexuality is a sexual sin like adultery, like incest, like any other sexual sin, and spiritual harlotry itself. When you turn your back on God and follow after strange gods or follow after other gods. And back in this day, there were temple prostitutes in certain religions, and even today in certain religions, they have temple prostitutes who, as a part of their worship, as an act of worship to whatever God, and it's a lot of satanic circles, of course, but even in other religions, that all of satanic, all of satanic. So it covers those sexual sins. So let me just mention one other, and then we're gonna move on, because like I said, we won't be able to finish up. But so Jesus talked about no adultery, no lust, no divorce, commitment. Commitment will rule out or knock out divorce if both people are genuinely committed to the marriage. It takes two. It takes both. If one's committed, the other's not. You know, it may fly, but it ain't gonna fly well. So it takes two people committed to the vows. And speaking, and the reason I didn't want to stop right there, because I want to move on, because he goes from that into oath taking and making vows. Children of the Father, you know, down in, and I don't get ahead of myself, but down around verse 47, this question, the Lord asked this question, and if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? So, what do you do more than others? He asked the question. And what he said, we have to measure ourselves not by others, but by the Father. We measure ourselves by the Father. He goes on in verse 48 to kind of clarify some of that. But this includes our words. Very important. We preach and teach a lot about words.